Hello and welcome to the Orlando World's Sunday Showdown round of 32. This week's episode features the incredibly popular Hollywood Studios attraction, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, and the former Universal Studios attraction, Kongfrontation. Before we begin this week's series of 5 rounds, let's find out a bit more about these attractions. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is a near 200-foot tall drop ride, which accelerates as it falls. It opened at Hollywood Studios on the 22nd of July 1994 and cost an eye-watering $140 million to construct. The ride takes unsuspecting guests on a free-fall adventure, where the elevator lift inside the building launches you up and down at random intervals, which are different every time you ride it, giving you a unique experience each time you ride. Tower of Terror uses a lot of forced perspective elements in sections of the ride, to give the impression that you are passing by very large-scale hallways, which are actually only a few meters deep, which all adds the overall effect of the ride. Tower of Terror is one of the best drop rides in Florida, which offers a great thrill with sudden jolting drops, and a rapid increase in speed when either going up or down the elevator shaft, making it fun, and a little terrifying at the same time. Looking back at traditional rides in Florida theme parks, and one of the most memorable of them all was of course Kongfrontation, at Universal Studios. It was a tramway dark ride, which was an opening day attraction at Universal Studios, opening on the 7th of June 1990, and was located in the New York area of the park. The ride was in the current located on the Mummy Ride, where the Museum of Antiquities building was originally designed as a replica facade of Pennsylvania Station in New York City. Kongfrontation was a decent attraction which was home to the Giant Kong, with some of the largest animatronic figures ever created for a theme park attraction. The ride features lots of special effects and a few interactions with Kong himself, on what was one of the most complex sky tram rides to create, but it was a ride that was full of suspense and drama. Now let's head into this week's series of rounds and see which of these attractions will advance to the round of 16. Let's go right ahead into round 1. Tower of Terror is one of the most iconic focal points in any Florida theme park, much like Spaceship Earth, Cinderella Castle, Tree of Life are to their respective parks. Sitting at the bottom of the Hollywood Boulevard area, sits the large 200-foot tall Tower of Terror Hotel, which looks fairly similar to the Haunted Mansion in terms of its spooky mystique. The ride is based on Rod Serling's TV series, The Twilight Zone, where the storyline is based around the elevator shafts to the rooms, where it's described to you that many people have mysteriously disappeared during some supernatural activity. Tower of Terror features a very intricate ride system, which not only moves up and down the elevator, but in and out of various floors, combining a track system and a pulley system. The theming is great outside of the ride, building up a feeling of suspense, with similar theming to the likes of Haunted Mansion, with a few creepy elements, and then entering the building with an opulent themed hotel, but with an old deco style, which adds to the overall feeling of the building being haunted. The ride is Disney very well, with forced perspective being used throughout, and an advanced pulley system which pulls the ride down the elevator shaft, faster than the speed it would travel if it were to free fall. It's well themed and just so well presented, and feels more like a thrilling drop ride version of Haunted Mansion, which shows how much detail has been included in this ride. Kongfrontation was one of the last of the original attractions at Universal Studios to close. It is still considered to be one of the best themed attractions even almost 2 decades after closing. The ride revolves around the local authorities in New York City trying to evacuate the inhabitants of the nearby Roosevelt Island, where you travel through an elaborate production set of a New York subway station, complete with real artist graffiti before you make your way to the Roosevelt Island Tramway, a sky tram system elevated over 60 feet in the air. Kongfrontation featured 2 Giant Kong animatronics, one of which can still be seen in the current Skull Island Reign of Kong attraction at Islands of Adventure. The Giant Kong figures were over 39 feet tall, with an arm span of over 54 feet, and both weighing approximately 13,000 pounds and 8,000 pounds respectively. The ride also featured banana breath, using smellitizers which was emitted from Cozy Road at riders, which added to the overall theming. Kongfrontation featured many special effects, with crashing helicopters, flames, burst pipe and explosions of electric power lines and more, in a terrifying dark ride experience. So in round 1, Kongfrontation takes the first point in the competition, just edging out the Tower of Terror ride, as it just had a little bit more theming, which was harder to design at the time. Let's move on to round 2. Tower of Terror is the original version of the ride, being the first version to open at any Disney park, opening a few years after Hollywood Studios' Oil the summer of 1994. The ride has been one of the most popular attractions within the park since it opened, and given its astronomical success, Disney sought to open similar versions in their other parks to help boost attendances within the other parks. The ride has now been in operation for over 26 years, and is seen as a somewhat sister attraction to Magic Kingdom's Haunted Mansion attraction. In the last 2 decades, the ride has been updated slightly to make use of better technology. However, much of the ride's features still use traditional methods with forced perspective and some traditional 3D technology methods using glass, mirrors and projections, keeping close to its original foundations when it first opened. Kongfrontation was surprisingly not in operation for as long as you may think, as its replacement attraction, The Revenge of the Mummy, has already surpassed it in terms of its years in service. Being an opening day attraction at Universal, the ride was epic in terms of what it was able to achieve with the technology available at the time, but with the advances in technology booming in the late 90s, Kongfrontation's ride system quickly became outdated, and being so complex at the time, newer technology was capable of creating much better motion for rides. The ride was constantly plagued with problems, and popularity also diminished, meaning that after just 12 years, the traditional style experiences were dying off, and Kongfrontation closed in 2002 as park guests wanted more realistic thrill rides, instead of themed presentations of popular film franchises. So in round 2, winning the point, and leveling the score, Tower of Terror makes it 1 point apiece as we head now to round 3. Tower of Terror is considered to be the tallest structure in all of the Disney parks. It towers above most of the Hollywood Studios skyline, taking pride of place down the iconic Sunset Boulevard area, at a height of 199 feet, featuring a 130-foot drop shaft. Tower of Terror is the tallest structure at Walt Disney World, just a half-foot taller than Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom. Rides are restricted to a maximum of 200 feet in height in local planning, which during planning, restricted the overall height. Interestingly, Disney thought about developed ride to feature basement levels, but decided against this due to planning restrictions and overall costs. Originally the building was going to be several stories higher, taking it up to around 260 feet. The ride itself from the outside doesn't look overly tall, but with clever planning it does look deceptive in its height, as is the case when the elevator shaft opens at the top of the ride, teetering you from the top of the elevator overlooking the eye-dropping view of the park from way up high. The Kongfrontation ride by comparison was a fair bit shorter in height, but for an indoor attraction, the ride had you elevated fairly high up, as you were suspended from the ceiling on a sky track, which the tramway carts used to move throughout the ride. The show building, being a replica of the Pennsylvania station in New York City, needed to be fairly big to house the giant 40-feet animatronic Kong figures, while you needed to be suspended over 60 feet in the air, which was quite frightening when coming face to face with the giant beast. The height of the ride allowed for some huge special effects, with burst water mains reaching 30 feet in height, flames and explosions, all adding to the effect and immersive aspect of the ride, creating the illusion of traveling through New York City to escape Kong. So for the third round, Tower of Terror goes into the lead for the first time, taking the point as we go into the penultimate round. The Tower of Terror, being the drop ride, had a surpassingly high capacity compared to other drop rides, like Dr. Doom's Fearful at Universal's Islands of Adventure. The ride operates with 8 vehicles at any one time, each travelling through various areas of the ride, while one ride car takes its frightening turn in the elevator shaft. Each ride vehicle holds 21 people, all seated within 3 rows of 7. In order for the ride to operate at capacity, ride duration needed to be roughly 3.5 minutes in length. Hourly capacity for Tower of Terror is a respectable 1,800 riders per hour, which is a fair bit higher than many drop rides, due to this one having the ability to access different floors during the ride. Kongfrontation had a very similar capacity. As with many tram and boat type rides, due to weight restrictions, each tramway vehicle carried approximately 60 people. Similar to Skull Island Reign of Kong and Faster and Furious Supercharged, riders were seated in rows of around 5 or 6 people, with the ride operating several trams at one time. Due to Kongfrontation's difficult technology systems, the ride was often out of service for maintenance, or operating at less than capacity, as the trams themselves were operated with dual control systems, meaning the ride would operate automatically, but also manually with the tram driver, which sometimes held the ride up a little, meaning it never really hit maximum hourly capacity, which was 1,850 riders per hour. So in the penultimate round, Kongfrontation takes the point to level the score as we going into the all-important 5th and final deciding round. Tower of Terror has a good blend of themed experiences and then the drop ride at the end. The attraction does really well in bringing out the supernatural elements to the ride, in similar fashion to Haunted Mansion, using some very clever effects. The elements on each of the floors aren't the most thrilling parts of the ride, but they do offer enough to enhance the final experience. Tower of Terror is exactly what it says it is, as the drop segment of the ride is frighteningly good. The elevator shaft section is automatically decided at complete random, meaning the sequence is unique to each ride, with climbs and drops, including tall or short drops and created by chance, and it's not the same each time, taking the predictability out of the equation, making it more thrilling as a result. The increased power used in the pulley system making the drops faster than a free fall, increases the intensity of the ride, making the drops remarkably terrifying. Kongfrontation was a unique experience, which was designed in the traditional way, being a film set experience with some good thrill elements. The ride itself was a suspenseful hide-and-seek ride, where you crept slowly around New York City trying to evade capture from Kong, as well as a frantic rush trying to find a clear route through the tram network to safety. The special effects added to the ride, and gave off the desired effect to younger riders, and the intriguing hands-on encounter with Kong clawing at the tram cart, trying to pull you off the track is the ultimate thrill part of the ride, with the memorable banana breath enhancing the realism even more. So in round 5, the point goes to Tower of Terror, which overall had the better thrill elements. Although as an overall ride experience, Kong provided a more enjoyable experience. Within this week's episode, we do now have a confirmed winner. Which means that the original King Kong attraction swings its way back to Roosevelt Island and out of the competition. Kong is currently operating at Islands of Adventure in Skull Island Reign of Kong, with a modern take on the old attraction, but many fans would love to see a return of the original ride in modern day, as it was such a good experience. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror advances to the next round. Join us next week for an epic encounter between Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts and Disney's Carousel of Progress. See you next week. We hope you enjoy this video. Please support us by subscribing to our channel. You can find us on social media platforms. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Orlando Worlds, and on Instagram at the Orlando Worlds. Thanks for watching.